All right, y'all, this story right here, Hitler particle emissions are absolutely through the roof. That's what's happening. Rubio makes deal, our new Secretary of State, by the way, who was unanimously approved, Bernie, every Democrat who's supposed to be worth a shit. He makes a deal with El Salvador to send migrants, including U.S. citizens, to prisons there. This is in Truth Out. They say critics have denounced the arrangement as bizarre and unprecedented, as well as illegal. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that El Salvador's president had agreed to accept people of any nationality who are deported from the U.S., a proposal that experts have said would likely violate international laws regarding the rights of migrants. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele also agreed to allow the U.S. to deport incarcerated people to El Salvador, even if they are U.S. citizens, Rubio said during a state visit to the country. Rubio, who was meeting with Bukele to sign an unrelated nuclear agreement, called the deal the most unprecedented, extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. He said that the deal would allow the U.S. to deport to El Salvador dangerous criminals currently in custody and serving their sentence in the United States, even though they're U.S. citizens or legal residents. The Trump administration indicated it has no plans to deport U.S. citizens who are currently incarcerated, but celebrated the deal nonetheless. So in other words, they're saying people from here on out who get incarcerated, even if they're a U.S. citizen, they could be sent to a prison in El Salvador. Bukele confirmed the deal on his X account, writing that the agreement included the U.S. paying a relatively low fee to transport immigrants and citizens to the country. Legal and civil rights experts decried the plan, noting that it wouldn't stand up to legal scrutiny. Quote, the U.S. is absolutely prohibited from deporting U.S. citizens, whether they are incarcerated or not, University of California, Berkeley law professor Letty Volpe told CNN. Emerson College international politics professor Nisha Gelman agreed, calling the proposal bizarre and unprecedented and saying that the deal was being made potentially between two authoritarian populist right-wing leaders seeking a transactional relationship. Quote, it's not rooted in any sort of legal provision and likely violates a number of international laws relating to the rights of migrants. The League of United Latin American Citizens, President Roman Palomares, also panned the proposal, saying that the organization opposes treating deported non-criminal migrants like cattle who can be shuttled from one country to another without regard to their home of origin. Bukele's government has been internationally condemned for its authoritarianism and glaring violations of human rights. Now, by the way, this guy Bukele has a very, very high approval rating. And the reason is actually very simple. El Salvador was overrun with gang violence and drug violence. And this guy came in there and he decided, I'm going full authoritarian. Fuck civil liberties, fuck rights, fuck the law. Basically, anybody in El Salvador who has tattoos, which they think are gang tattoos, they're just going to lock them up and throw away the key, right? And to be fair, the reason his approval rating is high is because regular people in El Salvador were like, hey, the streets are clean. Hey, there isn't a crime every day now just walking down the street occurring. So in a sense, it quote unquote worked. But in order to get to that point, you had to violate basic civil liberties, basic rights, throw out due process, throw out habeas corpus. And so this is one of those situations where to him, he says, well, the ends justify the means. But there's also, the liberal view is, look, if you want to get all these people off the streets, fair, we understand it if they're actually criminals, but you have to have a process in there to make sure you're dotting every I and crossing every T and getting it right and not locking up people who are totally innocent. And by the way, there have been examples that we already know of them locking up people who are totally innocent, right? But now he's known as like the prisons guy. And so Trump and Marco Rubio cut a deal with him to say, we want you to take undocumented immigrants that we don't want, but also U.S. citizens we don't want. Huh? So think about this, guys. This is at the exact same time that Trump is saying, and they already started the plane rides. We're sending 30,000 immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. Now, what is Guantanamo Bay? It is an extrajudicial prison. It's not subject to due process and habeas corpus. There is no recourse. If they decide they're sending you there, you're done, son. Bush and Cheney did this with alleged terrorists. And guess what? The overwhelming majority of them weren't terrorists and they had no recourse and they were illegally locked up for years and years and years. I remember because one of the first stories I covered when I started doing this job is a story of a guy by the name of Murat Kurnaz. He was a German citizen who was dragged off the street in Pakistan, sent to Guantanamo Bay, totally innocent. The German government had to intervene and say, hey, dog, release our citizen. He didn't do anything wrong. So, there is a reason why we have due process. There's a reason why there are checks and balances in the system. We want to make sure we don't lock up people wrongly. But to say we're going to send immigrants to Guantanamo Bay, saying throw out the rule book, we don't give a fuck. Anybody on a whim who we don't like, we'll throw over there. And remember, this is the same government that just arrested some U.S. citizens. ICE arrested U.S. citizens, U.S. veterans, mind you. They arrested a Puerto Rican family, including a toddler. This is the government you're going to trust? Oh, don't worry. Their attention to detail is phenomenal. It's spectacular. They'll only get the right people. But again, this whole conversation is moot anyway, because it's not supposed to be on the menu to say, let's take U.S. citizens, even if they're criminals, and send them basically to an overseas gulag, a fucking illegal prison colony. That's not a thing. Now, here's the scary part. Let's say this goes to court, which it will. Let's say the courts, even the right-wing courts, come to the same conclusion every other legal expert does, and they go, sorry, you can't do this. This is not how it works. We're striking it down. How do we know that they won't just say, yeah, agree to disagree? Oh, the courts want to stop us? Go ahead and stop us with your army. That's right, bitch. You don't have an army, so we're going to send these people overseas regardless of what the fuck you say. What happens then? That's beyond constitutional crisis. That is a coup. And that's what we're dealing with right now on this issue. That's what we're dealing with on the issue of Elon Musk illegally hacking the treasury and cutting off payments he doesn't like. He has zero authority to do that, and he's doing it. So what happens when the courts say, hey, dog, you can't do that? And Trump goes, I disagree. I'm going to let him continue doing it. And then he keeps doing it, even though it is brazenly illegal, and it's openly illegal. Even the right-wing courts say it's illegal, and he keeps doing it. What kind of a country do we fucking live in anymore? What kind of a country do we live in? I think you all know the answer to that. And then there's other issues as it pertains to this, like the prison that he's talking about, this like newly constructed mega prison that this guy made in El Salvador. There's all sorts of issues with, lack of clean water, lack of climate control, like lack of very many basic things that U.S. citizens, even though our prisons are hell, this is like maybe even above and beyond that, right? And then also, homie was bragging about how he has a slave program where they make these prisoners work, right? I mean, we also have that in California here, and maybe in many other states as well. We just did, or was it Alabama or Mississippi, where they lock these people up, and then they're working out in the open on a work release program. They don't really get paid for it, or they get paid very little for it. And then when they come up for parole, they strike down parole, even if the person is not a threat to society. And the reason they're doing that is because the slave labor is profitable to the state. So they have slave labor. That's happening in this country. Think of all of the slaves, prison slaves who are fighting the wildfires in California, right? And then here, same thing. Let's send U.S. citizens who we don't want here, illegally deport them to a different country, send them to basically our fucking gulag, our concentration camp, our penal colony, and have no strings attached, no due process, no recourse, and they can fucking rot in that prison and become slaves to the leader of El Salvador. Look, there is no more debate. Hey, are these people fascists? I don't know. Are they? Oh, I don't know. I was born yesterday, so I'm unsure. I'm still a fetus. I'm unsure if this is fascism or not. God damn it. Again, every day we wake up, it's another nightmare. Every day we wake up, it's worse. I mean, they come up with these ideas. I'll give them this. They're innovative, they're clever, but it's innovative and clever fascism. And it feels like the resistance to it, they're barely putting their pants on when the fascist ideas have already done 3 laps around the world, right? So we got to wake up to this new reality, man. The country that we used to know, the country that we were born and raised in, is no longer, you can't even make a stretch of an argument that what you think of it conceptually in your mind is a force for good. It is so far away from that, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. We're talking about we need a page 1 rewrite. There is no more, we don't have time for any more fucking incrementalism, right? This requires just fucking taking a wrecking ball and building something good from scratch, because you can't meet these people halfway. You can't meet these authoritarian fascists halfway. You can't do a kinder, gentler version of fascism because it's still fascism. And they're moving the football so far down the wrong end of the field, it's like, it's overwhelming to think about fighting back. But we got to do it. Look, I'm telling you, it's going to be a hold your breath moment when the courts inevitably slap down a lot of these things, right? How is the Trump administration going to react? How are they going to react? Are they going to go, all right, well, we tried, but we can't do it because the courts say, or are they just going to go, you can't fucking stop us. We're going to do what we want. Because at that point, all bets are off, bro. All bets are off. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.